Hey, so thanks again for checking out Think Media TV, helping you move further, faster in media. I'm Sean, and today I'm here with guest Tony Reale. How are you doing, Tony?
Good, thanks for having me, Sean.
Thanks for being here. Now, Tony has been a graphic designer for over 13 years and a cinematographer for over 4 years. He created NextWave Graphics 10 years ago, and he's used that business to develop excellence in the field of graphic arts. He has also served and worked with his church. He runs a YouTube channel with over 4,000 subscribers, giving away a bunch of do-it-yourself tips and awesome tutorials on how to do media stuff and video stuff. He's got a great blog with a ton of resources, and he's going to be talking about a lot of that stuff today. And so stay tuned for the whole thing, because there's going to be a lot of information to help you move further, faster in media. Now, the theme of our episode today is the HDSLR Revolution. And in a nutshell, what that is normally, if I was to be seen in public with this camera right here, you would assume I'm just taking some photographs, and you would probably be correct, because this is a digital SLR camera. But the HDSLR Revolution has been a game changer in the industry, because when manufacturers started to equip these cameras with the ability to do HD video, it opened up a whole lot of possibilities in video. These cameras have been used on even the show House. In the season finale, in this current season, they're using cameras like this to produce pro-level stuff. And the reason this is so relevant for you is because the price point and availability to bring these into an organization, maybe a small business or a church or a startup or a ministry, has been brought way down. And so there's positives and negatives. And so I'm going to turn it over to Tony and tell us a little bit about HDSLRs and maybe how relevant and necessary they could be for an organization or a church.
All right, yeah, like you were saying, these are typically, this is a still camera. People recognize it as a still camera. It takes single pictures at one time. The reason, in fact, that they actually added video to these cameras was for, not for video people like us, but was for the photojournalists. When they were out taking pictures, they want to have the ability to take a quick web clip that they could upload to YouTube or whatever for the sites. So the original, the first cameras that had video, they really didn't even pay that much attention to the frame rates or anything like that. The 5D Mark II had 30 frames per second, actual 30 frames per second, which is completely useless to anyone in the video industry. NTSC, I'm going to get a little geeky on you, but NTSC, which is the normal standard for the United States, is 29.97 frames. And we can talk a little bit more about that later. But the fact remains is that's what you use if you want something on TV. 30 frames per second is completely useless. So they weren't even really paying attention to the needs of video production, TV production, anything like that. All they cared about was just creating a video clip that they could throw online. What happened was, because we have these gorgeous sensors inside these cameras, the video that was being captured by the cameras was actually really, really amazing looking. You could get the gorgeous shallow depth of field that is normal in photography using a faster lens and a larger sensor that you could never ever get in a normal video camera. To put a point of reference, a video camera sensor, the average one that you might buy for your church is a 1/3 inch to a 2/3 inch sensor. That's obviously, if you can imagine, quite small. The sensor in these is, especially a full frame sensor, is 24 by 36 millimeter, which is huge in comparison. And the two things that happen when you have a larger sensor is you have lower light sensitivity and you have shallower depth of field. So we were able to get this cinematic video quality that was never able to be accomplished anywhere else. So this made a lot of people jump onto the HDSLR Revolution because people were so excited to be able to create this cinematic looking high quality video.
Amazing. Awesome. It's been a buzz in the industry, and I think some churches have adopted HDSLRs definitely, and I've seen amazing stuff coming out of those, but I think a lot are still unaware that there even is a revolution going on. And so here's the big question, Tony. For a church, a ministry, a nonprofit that is, they have, obviously everything takes some money, but they have budget constraints. they have, you know, volunteer teams or some staff members, and their skill levels are in different places. How, you know, what are some considerations a pastor, the decision makers, for where the money goes and for media, what are some of the considerations they should make when getting into these? Should they dive in? I mean, is it essential? What are some of your thoughts?
Well, when you're starting off, the first thing about a normal video camera where you just point and shoot it at something is they have features like zoom, autofocus, the ability to record for extended periods of time, and the functionality is specifically designed as a video camera. HDSLRs were, as I said before, never intended to be video cameras. They were intended to record video clips. And so you don't have things like autofocus. I shouldn't say that entirely. The Panasonic GH1, I think, does have the ability to do autofocus. I haven't worked with that one as much because it doesn't have as large of a sensor. But regardless, there are some options out there, but the average HDSLR is limited to manual focus. Well, what does that mean? That means that you have to physically change the focus of the lens. Then for zoom, you have to manually adjust the zoom. Any photographer is familiar with the ability to, if you have a zoom lens, you would just rotate your zoom back and forth to, you know, crop essentially it in and out to go from wide angle to telephoto. Video people aren't as familiar with this. If you're used to just using a video camera that has a little rocker zoom and you zoom in and out, that can be a very different thing for you. The other thing about it is because you're not doing a servo-based zoom system, you're doing a manual zoom, and so it's literally optics are moving back and forth, so you can't necessarily get as smooth a zoom, so you would never do a slow zoom with a HDSLR. You might do like a whip zoom or something like that as an artistic shot, but you would never do slow zooms. So there are limitations. Another one is the record time. The sensors are so large and they're recording so much light at one time, they literally have to stay open to record that video. The technology in this body is not designed to dissipate that heat, so they limit the record time to 12 minutes. The other side of the 12 minutes is that they use a FAT32 file structure, which simply means FAT32 can only record 4 gig at a time before it has to create a new file. And FAT32, what 4 gig ends up being is 12 minutes of HD recording. You can actually do longer in standard def. And sometimes I do standard def if we're just doing like a little short church web video or something that we prefer in full screen. Standard def is useful, so it's an option for you. But regardless, you're going to be going through a transition and having to kind of relearn how to shoot video. The exciting thing is once you relearn how to shoot video, you can accomplish some really great effects. Now, to just grab this camera and shoot video, you can do it. But you're going to notice things. There's an issue with rolling shutter in the camera. Basically, the shutter is going down continuously like this. If you have an object that's moving back and forth, like you're panning very quickly or somebody's running really, really fast or a car is going by and the scanner is going down and that moves across, you can get kind of a skew, which kind of creates this wobble to it. So, for example, going handheld, you might end up with a little bit of jiggle, and they call it jello cam effect. So typically you would want to either go on a tripod or have a shoulder rig. Now shoulder rigs, and if you look up camera rigs, you'll see tons and tons of different things. I'm going to show you one of my rigs right here. This is a more advanced one and not by any means something you have to get. This right here is a big old camera rig system. And what I have here is there's a counterbalance on the back here that allows this to be fairly evenly balanced, so when I'm riding it on my shoulder, it's fairly comfortable. I have handle grips. I have right here is a follow focus that allows me to control the focus instead of having to rotate the focus on the front of the lens. I'm using this follow focus, which makes it a lot easier to control, especially with this ergonomic to it. I can also put a whip into this. Somebody else can hold it. And then there's a lot of other features. I have a matte box here. I've got my Zoom audio recorder, which is the same thing that you're using for your audio there. Battery pack back here, and a lot of other things that I'll go over maybe a little bit later. But the fact simply remains, you can create. I've seen people build shoulder rigs for a couple bucks. They build it out of wood, PVC pipe, whatever. You don't necessarily have to get a professional rig like that. The reason I have professional gear is because I go on many shoots, and I need it to work for me when I show up. And that can be something that people get scared of. They may look at my videos and they see all this fancy gear and they think I can never afford that. Well, there's two sides of things. You can have really expensive gear that you need to work, like I do when I show up at a shoot, and if I'm charging a client a lot of money, they expect it to look professional and they expect it to work and not be paying me to go through several different things. Now there's the other side of things. If it's a hobby or something for your church, there's a ton of do-it-yourself videos out there. We have a video about how to build a jib, several other do-it-yourself projects, and there's tons of other things about how to build stuff that you can do for really cheap and still create some of those really cool looks that you want to accomplish.
Excellent, excellent. So to consider now, again, for that church to make a decision, let's say they want to go as cheap as possible, but they want to get into HDSLRs. Something that I've thought a lot about is the ability for a church to, if they have no equipment, if they get into one, they're also getting into a camera. And that is it gives them the potential, a better camera with depth of field and zoom lens than just a point and shoot. And so they may be able to have better photography for their website and whatever else. So there's a huge plus there. And then they also have the ability to do video. Now the thing is with HDSLRs is that you're never going to use one to record your sermon video. You can't buy it and have it, make you great sermon illustration videos and record your sermon video because of the time limit, because it's not ideal for that. It's going to be ideal for set shots and plan things. Running guns a little harder with HDSLRs. And so, would you say, Tony, that it's not the only thing that you should get? It's something that you should add to equipment you already have for a church.
That is a great point, and that is exactly what you want to do with it. It's a tool. It's not the end-all, be-all tool. Even for video professionals, being able to shoot on the cameras like this, there are still limitations that we face, and I can't let this camera be my only camera that I bring on a shoot. If it is my only camera that I bring on a shoot, then I know exactly what that shoot's going to encompass, and I'm not going to be expecting more out of it than it can handle. And that's a big part of it. Any camera that you have, the most important factor is becoming familiar with that camera and just playing around with it. A lot of times, that's why we try to do these online resources for free. We try to give people a general understanding. You don't have to spend years in college to get it. You can spend that money that you would spend on college and spend it on gear and then get familiar with it. But we try to bring them resources that they can understand it without just looking at it and being scared. Because honestly, trying to shoot video on this, I've had a lot of friends that pick up a camera like this and they get scared off by it because it doesn't work the way that they're familiar with it, and they turn around and sell it in a few days. We don't want people to do that. It is a great resource. You get fundamental functions like low light performance. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Larger sensor means lower light, and even the newer cameras, they have increased ISO sensitivity. Your ISO is basically your light sensitivity of your camera. Before, when we used film, you would have to change the actual film ISO. It was rated for a specific ISO. Nowadays, you can literally just dial in the ISO on your camera, which is a great functionality to it. And as technology progresses, we're going to get even more light sensitive. There are cameras literally today that are more sensitive than human eye, which is a really exciting factor to be in, and just to see technologies progressing as we go along. So yes, you wouldn't want this to be your end-all camera. We have a national TV show that we shoot called Love, Marriage, and Sticky Thinking, and we were considering moving to DSLRs as potentially as a multicam shoot, but it would have been a very different workflow, and it would have been it's a scripted TV show, so it would have been more laid out. Doing it for a Sunday morning sermon where you have a lot of variables is very much not a good idea. Right. So we wouldn't recommend it. So your application is sermon illustration videos, testimonials, web videos, webcasts, things like that, where they're more scripted. This camera, basically think of this camera as like a film camera. If you were to go on a movie set, you have a script, you have a director, you have people that are planning things out, actors have their marks that you hit, all this kind of stuff. Not to say that you have to make an elaborate thing out of a production for a HDSLR, but basically think of it as a something that you wouldn't necessarily grab for just event videography where you're running around the church, or something you need autofocus and you need all these other things. So that's kind of the application of it. Now, what do you need and what do you not need? Like, obviously, you don't necessarily need everything that I showed you on this big rig here, but there are some things that you should have. You start off with your camera. Obviously, you're going to need power, so you're going to need multiple battery packs. Memory cards, lots of memory cards. You're going to chew up memory fast, and that would also translate to lots of hard drive space on your computer. So you've got your camera. Now, the cameras do have the ability to record audio. They have built-in mics, and the mics aren't horrible, but they aren't by any means professional, and you will automatically hear a difference. And before I get started with that too, there's 3 factors that make up a quality production. You've got the quality of your camera, your lighting, and your sound. And when you have a great combination of those, you can make something look very cinematic. And so, starting off with your image, you're obviously, if you're going to get HDSLR, you're going to have the great image on that side of things. Now you need to learn how to control it. So you've got your image. Now sound, how do you record sound? Well, the Zoom recorder that you're using over there, and I will grab mine right here just to show it more example, is what this has is XLR inputs that can use professional grade microphones. You've got your XLR mics, like your shotgun mic, and then you've got things like your lapel mics that you just clip on to the edge, or even using a studio grade mic like this. This allows you to hook those up, and then it doesn't matter that your camera doesn't have those inputs because you're recording it separately. The one thing when you record audio separately is you have to sync the audio later on. So that is an extra step, but honestly, when you compare it to other setups, this is a much better option, and it is going to be a great tool for you. It does have a built-in mic, so you can always use that. Obviously, Sean's using that right now, but if you want to get a specific, like a shotgun mic is great because it's very directional. If you're in a louder area, if you're outdoors, if you're shooting a scene, say if you're doing like a sermon illustration video and you want to shoot something narrative, you can point it directly at the person and it'll kind of drown out all the rest of the sound around it. A lapel mic, obviously if you work at a church, you're probably familiar with those because those clip on, and then they also have some that can come down as your wrap around your ear mics. But those are great because you can then isolate the sound, and they're great for like little vodcasts or whatever. And it'll just increase the quality of your production. Obviously, I could have used the built-in mic of my computer, but it could have been distracting. I just like having a little better quality sound because it's less distracting and you kind of pay attention to the production a little bit more.
Right.
Now, another thing, and I'm just going to move over here and grab it, would be a fluid head. Now, this is a need. This is definitely a need. A good fluid head tripod. What this allows you to do is get those beautiful pan tilts, and you can just kind of move it around, pan up and down, or I'm sorry, pan back left and right, tilt up and down. You can get those beautiful pans back and forth. This right here is attached to a slider assembly, and then you can move this back and forth. There's a do-it-yourself slider system that Sean might be able to link to their place where you can do it. But sliders can cost $400 or $500. You can do it yourself for about $180, I think, for the parts. So there's a lot of do-it-yourself resources. A slider is basically a dolly. And what a dolly does is it allows you to just kind of move back and forth or push in and back, and you get a very, very smooth look with it. So that's really nice. You don't need that necessarily. A fluid head, you pretty much do need. Now, this is a Davis and Sanford FM 18 head. You get these on B&H Photo for like $200, which is a great price for a fluid head. Fluid heads can go up to $6,000-$7,000. So this I would label as a definite need. Unless you're just going to lock down the tripod. You can get one of those cheapo $30 tripods from the store, but don't expect to be able to pan and tilt or anything like that with it. You'll just be locking it down and doing a standard shot. which you can do if you're just trying to do like a video cast or something like that. But if you want to do any sort of movement, get a fluid head. Another accessory right here. This is they call this a LCD loop. What it is a little magnifier. And if you can see right there, there's a little magnifier on the end of that. And then this is just the eye cup that goes over the top. And it attaches to the back of your DSLR, your LCD screen. And then you can use this to magnify the screen. Because honestly, this screen isn't really designed for you to get your eye right up to it. This allows you to physically, your eye can focus on it closer when it's physically closer to you. And this allows you to use your LCD screen to set the focus. This is a great option, and I consider this a need. It's a couple $100, but it's definitely worth it because this allows you to, it does two things. It adds the ability to focus easier on your camera, but it also allows you to have edit stability. When this is on here, I now have 3 points of contact for my camera. I have my eye, my right hand, and my left hand, and now I can move around, and the camera is a lot smoother than if I were just to hold it in front of me, and I can get those little jitters. So this is not only able to help you focus, but it's a great point of stabilization.
Right, right. Okay, so a basic rundown now, and maybe you have a specific recommendation. Someone wants to, they want to jump into this stuff, and they've decided they want to go for it, and they want to spend as little as possible, but they don't have, they want better photos on their website. They want to be putting together some video announcements. So they want to start video blogging, and they want to create short films, maybe a short promo about their church with or their organization where they're talking and they show shots of the city, and they want it to be this really next level quality, and they want it to be beautiful, but they're also on a limited budget. What camera would you recommend to just get those following things done? What would they need, and then how much could they do it for right now?
Right. I've been talking, and the gear that I've been showing you is all Canon based. I used to have a Nikon D90. And that was my first HDSLR that actually had video. The problem was it only had one frame rate, and it only had one video size, and I really didn't like being limited by that. Canons have a lot more functionality, a lot more features, so I migrated over to Canon. So you could get a Nikon if you guys like Nikon, that's fine. And you can look up the features for them, but I'm going to be talking mainly about Canon. The Canon T2i is the lowest price point camera. That one comes in about, I think, $800 for just the body, and then with the kit lens, I think it's around $900. Now, the kit lens is never a great lens. It's a good lens. It's a good enough lens to get you going. It doesn't have usually they're not very long zoom. Usually they're not very fast. And when we say fast, that means the f-stop of the camera. The lower the number, the faster the lens. And what that does is it does two things. It increases your light sensitivity, and it increases your shallowness of depth of field. So if I were using, say, a f5.6 lens, and then I used an f1.8 lens, the f1.8 lens is going to be I can shoot in a lot lower light, and then I'm also going to have a lot shallower depth of field. And everybody loves the shallow depth of field look. So getting quality lenses is an important factor. If you just want to get up and going and having an HDSLR, you can get the kit lens, but you might want to look at quality lenses down the road. So now the T2i is your lowest price point. Canon just announced the 60D, which I don't even know if it's available to buy yet, but it'll be out pretty soon. Then you have your 7D and your 5D Mark II. So that's kind of your order right there. And then there's the 1D Mark IV, but that one's like $5,000. That one you don't necessarily need to invest in. Your 60D, honestly, I would say go with the 60D. It's a few $100s more, but it's got a much more pro body, a few more pro features. I would say spend a couple extra $100. Get the 60D. It even has an articulating screen that pops out. So I think that those functions in it make it worth that extra few $100s. The 7D again is going to have more pro features, lower light sensitivity, and then the 5D Mark II has got the largest full frame sensor, and it has the lowest light sensitivity of the four. It has I'm using the 5D Mark II because it's just a lot of cinematographers just love the skin tone rendition of it. It's just one of the nicest. And as you said, House uses it. House only uses the 5D Mark II for their shoots. Do you need pro level? Not necessarily. But so just to get you started, the 60D, I think they announced it for like $1,100 and $1,400 with the kit lens, somewhere in there. So I would say getting just the camera, you're going to be looking around $1,500 to get that one and maybe a couple decent lenses, 1 or 2 lenses. Now, just getting started off, there's lens, I don't think I have it in front of me, the Canon 50mm f1.8. They call it the Nifty 50. That lens is a great price point, and it's $100, between $100 and $120 depending on where you get it from. That one's a fast lens. It's got great shallow depth of field. It's not necessarily the highest quality lens out there, but the cost per lens, quota, whatever you want to call it, I think it's a great lens to get. So even if you were just to get the T2i kit lens and the 50mm f1.8, you can do that for under $100 easily, or under $1,000. I'm sorry, easily. So that gets you up and running. I guess it's 60D is a good option. So that just gets you basic lenses. Now, right here, this is a 85mm Zeiss f1.4. It is a beautiful lens. You can see the light coming through there. I mean, it's just a gorgeous lens. But this lens right here is about $1,500. So, you can spend money on glass and you'll get great results. But just getting started, you don't necessarily have to. Expect lenses to cost you anywhere from $500 to $1,500 just for basic ones. I should say basic good lenses, but that's your average lens point, and you can spend tons of money on lenses. The key that a lot of photographers will say is spend your money on your glass before you spend your money on your body of your camera. So say we have $1,000 to $1,500 to get your camera. The Zoom H4n, we talked about that. That's about $200. You might be, or $200 or $300, depending on, you might get one used on eBay. And then a good XLR mic costs you around $100 to $200 for that. So sound, I'd say $300 to $500, somewhere in there. Lapel mics, again, cost anywhere from $100 to $300 for the basic ones, $600 on up for the more advanced ones. And you might already have one at your church, too, that you could hook up to the Zoom and use that. Make sure you check with your church. A lot of things like audio and lighting you may already have that you can utilize.
That's a good point.
So that's just getting you there. A good fluid head. I think the Davis and Stanford FM18 is a great price point fluid head. A lot of Manfrotto heads out there. They're another great price point. You usually on $300 to $400. Honestly, I've worked with them. I like the Davis and Stanford for $200 more than the Manfrottos for $300 to $400. I think it's a great investment. So $200 gets you a good fluid head. Shoulder rig. Those, again, $200 to $600, or even more, depending. Like this kitted out one that I have is closer to $1,000. Do you need one? If you plan on doing handheld, moving around the church, that would be a good price point, and that would be a good thing to invest in. You can go, but you don't have to buy this stuff right away. Get the camera, get your sound, get a fluid head, and then play around with it handheld and say, this is too jittery, or I'm not getting the results I want. Don't be afraid saying, okay, I can't get the results I want. Just know that it may cost you a little extra money to get the gear to get you there. Now, follow focus, as I showed you here, this is basically a gear system, and these, again, the expensive ones are like $2,000. This one right here is about $500. But there are some lower costing ones that are around $100 to $200. Do you need this? Not really. You can just set your focus on your lens manually. But if you're going to be doing a lot of production, this can save you a ton of time, be a wonderful, just a wonderful addition to your arsenal, and somebody else can be pulling focus while you're trying to operate the camera normally. So that kind of covers your basic stuff. Oh yeah, the eye loop, like I said, this I do recommend because it adds stability and it adds magnification, so you can use the camera handheld easier. This is about $180. This is LCD viewfinder model. and this one doesn't have a diopter. What that means is you can't set the focus of it. This is common for people with glasses, that they have to change the focus depending on where their eyes are. More expensive ones are out there that have diopters by Zacuto. Those are about $300 or $400. So if you don't have glasses, this is good. If you do have glasses, this might work for you. It might not. I don't know. But there are more expensive ones that you can get with diopters. So that, like I said, $180 for that one. So that kind of covers your basic stuff. Now, lighting, as I said before, really, really important. And really, to get you started with that, your best bet is to check out video tutorials like ours and some other ones out there, and get understanding of how lighting works. A lot of people just think you light the scene. Well, not exactly. The important thing about light is controlling the light. I have a 700 watt, it's a 200 watt fluorescent bulb, 700 watt equivalent that's set up right up here, and I have a China ball on top of it that's diffusing it, that's kind of evening out the light from back here. And then back here, if you can see, there's actually a window here, and you can't really see, but I actually have a flag in there.
All right, well, we had a dropped call, and we are back. And Tony, you were just talking about the necessity of lighting and how a lot of people don't necessarily understand lighting. What were you talking about?
Sure. Like I said, lighting can cost anywhere from a couple $100 to a couple $1,000. The important factor is learning how to control lighting, and that's kind of what we try to do in some of our online videos. The thing is, you can light a scene with regular light bulbs. You can use get a clamp light from your local hardware store, screw in a light bulb in there and point it at somebody, and you'll be able to light that, and it'll work. The thing is, it may not create the light that you're looking for, and knowing how to control light and create the light that you're looking for are different factors too. For example, if you wanted to create a more soft light, a diffused light, rather than the harsh light that would be coming from that silver reflector inside the clamp light, you could use a piece of parchment paper, wax paper, something that wouldn't burn necessarily when it's right up against the light. And then you could just use some clothespins to clip that on there. Another thing you could do, and we'll be doing a video about this hopefully sometime soon, but you could use some tin foil, wrap it around there. Now you can create a snoot or flag, so to speak, and block where the light's going so it's not spilling on your background somewhere. Professional lights have all these features built into them. You've got soft boxes, you've got China balls, you've got lots of different things that you can do, and those are really quick and easy ways to get started. Because I need a professional light. I grab my light. It's got barn doors on it. It's got a specific wattage, specific color temperature. For example, daylight is 5,600 kelvins. That's what they use to measure light temperature. 5,600 Kelvin is the average for daylight. Now, if it's more overcast, it could be more blue. If it's more bright and sunshiny, it could be closer to the 5,000 range. Overcast might be 6,000 or 7,000 Kelvin. A normal household light bulb, that's around 3,200 Kelvin. But those, again, can range from 2,800 to 3,500, 3,600. A fluorescent bulb at your church probably that has those fluorescent tubes are around 4,300, which would be more on the green. 3,200 is more on the yellow. 2,800 would be more towards the red. And then it's a whole spectrum. Think of your rainbow, and then there's color temperatures to measure that. The thing about it is you wouldn't want to mix a light bulb with a daylight scene, because one of them is going to be off. If you white balance, and in your camera you'll see this, you can white balance to a specific setting. If you're white balanced to tungsten, your outside is going to look blue. If you're white balanced to daylight, your light bulb is going to look yellow, and whatever you're lighting the person with is going to look off. So you can use that. You realize that okay, this is what I got to use. Now, professional video lights are calibrated to a specific color temperature. I have 5,600 Kelvin lights that I can use with daylight so that I'm not counteracting that. But going back to the cheap side, like I said, you can get just a cheap setup, and then just learning how to control that, and then being able to just light your scenes properly. Learning simple things like 3-point lighting for doing interview, which means you've got your key light, which is kind of your brighter light, your fill light, which makes the shadows not too dark, and then a nice rim light, which Sean's obviously got going on right there, which is a nice kicker, separates you from the background. Like you can see, Sean's hat is kind of dark. If you didn't have that kicker light, it would be, you'd kind of wouldn't see it at all. So that just understanding that, you would be able to separate that from the background, so that if your subject's got dark hair and the background's dark, you've got the kicker light so that they don't look like a blob of nothingness above them. So just having understanding of lighting is one of your most important factors. And then deciding what your budget is, and then you can get kits that kind of range anywhere from there. So getting started, $1,000 for the camera, $500 for the sound, getting a tripod and some stuff, maybe another $500, and maybe $500 for lights. I'd say around $2,000 to $3,000 gets you comfortably started. Now, you can just grab the camera, stick it on a $20 tripod, and shoot. It may not get the same results that you see on Vimeo and YouTube and all those specialty videos that everybody Googles over and loves, but you can shoot with that. Don't think that you have to spend $3,000 to get something. Now, if you want to cover the bases and be able to shoot in more circumstances and have a professional video that you could stick on your church website and feel that it looks on par with the other ones, then I would say the $2,000 to $3,000 range will get you up and going pretty good.
Which is actually pretty incredible, because when we talk about $2,000 to $3,000 to get set up with all that stuff, that might sound like a large number, but for the quality it would produce, pre the HDSLR Revolution, how much would that same quality maybe cost?
Well, you had if we move before the red one, which I'll talk about in a second, you would have to spend around $300,000 to $400,000 for a film camera, and then you wouldn't even know how to operate it because it's way too expensive. Now, the red one came out, and they revolutionized everything by creating a $20,000 camera that was, oh, this is amazing. I can't believe that this can accomplish this for $20,000. And then Canon slapped video on their DSLRs, and now all of a sudden you can do it for $2,000 to $3,000.
Right.
Now, I wouldn't put the red one and the 5D in the same category, because the red one shoots at a really high resolution, so you can do great visual effects with it. It's got a higher range. You can do all these great accomplishments with it. But for a web video, for a church video, for independent film on a low budget, $20,000 is not even feasible. For a commercial production company or for a small film production company, $20,000 is a miracle, because they don't have to spend $100,000. For the average person like you and me, $20,000 is nowhere. That's a car, that's a house, half of a house, whatever. That's just, it's not going to happen. So $3,000 for a camera system, when before a professional grade camera would cost $3,000. That wouldn't even have the same look in image. One thing too, and not to get super technical, but the average video camera has the dynamic range of it is around 8 stops of light, 6 to 8 stops depending on the camera. What this means is you've got 8 stops, and light's measured in stops. I won't get into that into detail, but so you have that range before you blow out your whites or you clip your blacks. Now, a film camera is around 13 stops, and that much higher range, and you're able to see the gradation from bright whites, like a sunset, from the bright whites into the oranges and everything. Your darks, you actually can see the detail and the shadows more. The thing about the 5D is it actually has, they record around 10 to 11 stops, and HDSLRs in general have around 10 to 11 stops of dynamic range. So there's a reason that they look like film and they don't look like video. And there's several. It's the shallow depth of field. It's the low light ability. But a big chunk of that is the dynamic range of the camera. So it doesn't matter if you were to light a scene properly with a video camera. You're never going to accomplish that same look, that specific look that HDSLRs can accomplish. They have their own unique look. It looks similar to film, but it not quite. It doesn't look like video, but it functions in a video range. So that they're their own thing. And like I said before, you kind of have to learn it. You have to master it, and then you can accomplish some really great stuff with it. At the end of the day, they always say the content is king. So if you point the camera at something really boring or unappealing, it's not going to look that great. So, and before we even necessarily should have started about this, we should have started just saying that make sure you have a great something, like a good message to be talking about, whatever it may be. That's the most important thing. No matter how great the HDSLRs are, they're not going to make boring or ugly video sing gloriously. So focus on that. Have a good storytelling. If you're doing a narrative or something like that, have good actors. And then now you can basically, the gear side, I always say that good production has a good story, good acting, and then good production quality. And now the production quality budget has dropped dramatically so that more people can accomplish that. That doesn't say that the good acting and the good story have dropped in necessity either. That just means that those are still there, but anybody can now accomplish it.
That's a good point. Okay, so if we were to break it all the way down, though, we could say someone's watching this video and they go, I do want to jump in. They could get a T2i, they could get the kit lens, they could use the tripod they already have in their church, they could figure out a way to use the lapel mic they already have, or they could just plug in a mic to their computer and maybe do a voiceover in the video if they're really trying to do something high-end with what they have. So they could do a voiceover, they could add music and not even use the audio off the HDSLR, and they could jump into it with still shots and without pans and still create something pretty amazing for right around $1,000. And I would say too, agreeing with you, I would say that if you did get something though, you definitely would want to get that viewfinder. Or use the tip that you used, and that was using your laptop for the monitor, because using my 7D early on, getting accurate focus is brutal, and you think you're there, and you kind of almost have to overshoot sometimes, because I just would shoot longer shots and just hope that, shoot it a couple different times and hope that one was in that perfect focus. And so getting that good focus, but if they had a good story and everything, for right around about $1,000, they could get a T2i, they could get that kit lens, they could start using stuff they have, and then they could get some stuff done. Now,
absolutely.
Now, and not only that, not only could they produce maybe a video to start casting the vision, and as stuff happens, and as they get more money, they could start adding to their kit. They also could take great photos, or at least better photos, with that camera, with that kit lens, than that little Sony, point and shoot, or the Nikon Coolpix, for their website, for their graphic design, which is also going to bring things up for their staff photos, whatever it is, to another level. But that being said, somebody pulls the trigger now, they jump into this stuff. You have a resource coming out to begin training people, because it's definitely going to be a process. And one recommendation I would make when it comes to video is that you want to just get started, because you're always going to have to add to your learning. Some of the stuff Tony's talking about might just be blowing your mind right now, but as you hear these terms and as you just get greater exposure, as you fail a lot and you go, yeah, the sky was blue and the coloring was wrong, that stuff begins to just really hit home, and you just add to your learning. But now, let's say they jump into this. What is the resource that you have coming out to train people on how to use HDSLRs?
Yeah, what we're doing is we're doing an entire series. We're calling it HDSLR 101, and it's going to get you from a lot of things that we talked about here, why HDSLRs exist, what gear. We're going to go over gear a lot more. What do you need? How does it work? How does the functionality of the camera work? Because, the video is an afterthought originally on these cameras, so even just something as simple as enabling the video is a step. And if you don't just grab the camera, pick it up, point it, and start recording, you do have to enable it. You have to enable a few settings and select your settings. So we're going to go through everything. It's going to be a 12-episode series, and it's going to be available online for free. We're going to be releasing it every other week, starting probably early to mid-October. And that's going to be a free resource for everybody. If it's going to be, since it's 12 episodes every other week, it's going to average about 6 months till the last one comes out. If you're really gung-ho and you want to get started and you don't want to wait that long, we will make it available as a digital download for only $20, which is still pretty cheap compared to some of the other ones out there. We're not trying to make a ton of money off of this. We just want to be able to cover our costs, and it helps out some of the production costs and everything. But this is just basically to get people up and going, started, and learning HDSLRs. And that's going to be hopefully a popular resource, because there are other training out there, but it's kind of either you have to pay a lot of money for it, or it's kind of diversified and there's not like an organization to it.
Sure, sure. Okay, so that'll be a great resource, and I would definitely recommend that to get as much training as possible. And also, all the links to everything that we're talking about and even extra stuff will be in the description of this video. and so check those out. Links to that, as well as a ton of videos that Tony's already done on lighting, on stuff that he's done. Watch them all. Just begin to add to your learning. Now, I wanted to just kind of slightly diverge and see if you have any tips for monetizing or making some money to get this stuff happening. My story personally is that I kind of started as a freelancer, and then I started a company called Clear Vision Media. And what's great about it is getting equipment for the company, and then I'll use it for the nonprofit organization Think International, as well as our local church. But let's say there's an intern, and this could be true for the church as well, even ways of maybe generating some income. But have you think of just creative ways that you have done in the past to get some of this equipment, to get your hands on it, maybe renting, just ways to get into things if you're really on a tight budget, or you just want to start generating some money, buying used, tips, like your hustle tips for this kind of stuff?
Sure. Obviously, eBay is a great resource. Craigslist is a good resource. There's certain things that you can kind of trust buying, and certain things that I wouldn't really necessarily buy. For example, a fluid head tripod, they can wear down. The cheaper ones can wear down. So if one's several years old, might not be a good thing to buy used, although it might be. You kind of play around with that. Lenses, as long as they're clean, are almost always a great resource to be able to purchase. Now, lenses can mold on the inside. There are issues that can happen, but typically 90% of the time you can buy a lens online and be confident that you're making a good investment, and then you can turn it around later on and get most of your money back. There are lenses that are decades old that still pull almost the same amount of money that they did when they first were out, just because of the way glass works. So yeah, there's rentals out there. Rental, I can't think of any of them off the top of my head, but you can probably do a search for them for lens rentals. You can get a great, some several $1,000 lenses for, $20, $30, $40 to rent it for a week or a weekend, and then play around with it, see if it's something you want to use. Sometimes it may be a local place to your church that if you needed that special telephoto long lens for a special shoot, you can rent it for the weekend, and you don't necessarily spend $2,000 to buy it. So that's that. Like I said, for lighting, lighting you can kind of cheat with, and if once you develop a good understanding, you can spend $20 and be able to light a scene. Sound is a little more specific. We have I have it in front of me. They make small. Actually, here, I got that one right here. This is a little itty bitty shotgun mic. Where it's got just a little itty bitty guy. This you can pick up online, $50, and honestly, it's not going to be the same quality as a professional grade $200-300 shotgun. But you slap this on top of your hot shoe of your camera like that, and now you've got yourself just a little sound recording kit. Now the 5D, the 7D, I think the T2i, all have mic inputs on the side, so you can actually record on camera. And I use this for if I'm just doing small itty bitty videos. You don't necessarily have to have this. If you're doing higher quality stuff, this is a great little thing. So I should have mentioned that probably earlier, but these you can get online cheap. This is the Asden SMX1 S1 something like that, and we'll put a link up for that. And then there's also the Rode video mic out there, which is a little more expensive but better quality. So that's something cheap you can pick up. Let's see. One thing that I always recommend to people is focus on what you're good at. I did graphic design for a while, fell in love with video production, and decided, but you kind of stumble across video production. If you do photography, it's a one-man gig. Video production is usually a multi-person gig, especially if you're doing like a movie or a short film or something like that. What I try to do is, I'm not a good sound person. I'm just not. That's not my forte. I'm not really a good director. I can light well. I can create a great image. I know how to lens. I know gear, stuff like that. So I'll grab somebody else that does sound really well. and have them focus on the sound. They might already have their own sound equipment. For a shoot, somebody might hire me or bring me on board to become a friend of mine. I have a lot of friends people that befriend me just so I can bring my thousands of dollars of lighting gear with me to do a shoot, or my camera gear. Partner together with other people. Now, some people may be afraid of that. So many people may. The thing was like stories. If somebody has a story, they hold it really tight to their chest, and they feel as their own. You kind of have to let go of that, because film, video is a community thing, and you have to kind of accept that, because if somebody has an idea and then somebody else has the gear, that person with the gear is going to feel just as involved as the person with the story. And if this person thinks that they're way above here and the gear person is lower, they're not going to want to work with that person anymore. I've spent thousands of dollars on my gear. You spent $10 on printer ink. So you gotta be a community. Everybody needs each other, and kind of come together and recognize that.
That's great. That's great. Now, again, I guess a creative, a huge thing for pastors, leaders of an organization is to, when it comes to monetization for something like this, is to cast good vision. A lot of times they say that people don't give to need, they give to vision. And media is very powerful, whether it's telling a story or whether it's just getting out good, high production media in a vlog format, video blog format, to spread the word, to accelerate communication within an organization, to communicate testimonies of what's happening overseas, and to be able to send it back home in a room where the audio is not horrible and the video is not bad because everything's it's not great. So what really quick, what would you say is the payoff and the impact? Like, why? I mean, a pastor saying, okay, $3,000, to jump into digital SLRs, really? Like, why should we make that investment and jump into this stuff?
Well, they say that filmmaking is the greatest storytelling media available in the world. Films across generations, you can see a consistency. Like, they've got the cliche chick flick or the cliche guy movie. At the end of the day, it's still got a guy going back for the girl. This happens across cultures, and so people can recognize a film, see it, experience it, and be able to take something away from it. Now, that's a film. You say, well, I'm just doing a video. Well, a video can convey emotion. Something as simple as doing a testimonial video. If you just had somebody that's, went through an intense moment in their life, and you want to convey deep emotion, doing something like having a shallow depth of field shot, close up on their eyes, you can convey so much emotion. The purpose of shallow depth of field is to isolate the background from the foreground, or vice versa, and be able to allow somebody to focus on one thing. When you create that intimacy in something like that, you can create emotion. Lighting is the same way. If you overexpose and you overlight, kind of like I am right now, this right here might just kind of seem boring. Sean's got a more cool looking lighting system right there with his rim light. It's kind of edgier, action movie-esque, whatever. So that's an emotion that you're experiencing. If I had a soft light that was coming in from one side, and then I had like a hash going out across the background, I could create a completely different mood than I'm creating right now. So you're creating mood. And one of the big things too is obviously music. And if you don't mind, I'm going to plug. We are trying to help create lower costing background music available for people. Right now, if you were to buy a background track and just dump it into your video file, you'd want to get royalty-free music, because if you use royalty music, like professionally done music, and you put it on your website, you could get sued. Bad thing. So royalty-free music is a great way to go. Problem is they're like $30 a track, $100 a pack. The budgets aren't always there. You might be able to get a couple packs for that much. We're launching actually this weekend. Hopefully everything goes well. That we're going to be launching. We're calling them NextWave tracks, which is going to be affordable track packs, $30, gets you several songs in a genre. And so those, and we're going to be doing other church media really affordable church media stuff down the road too. But just having a really beautiful piano music ballad going on in the background, now you're conveying an entire emotion when all this was a testimonial video. And now, if you got a church website, you stick it up on the church website. Somebody clicks on there, comes across your website, they get emotionally impacted by that video. They say, I want to go to that church. I want to experience the same emotions. You're not trying to lie to the person. You're just trying to convey emotion that these people were having. And you're allowing them to experience that same emotion within themselves. So really, at the end of the day, you're trying to convey emotion in every medium possible. And by having quality sound, quality lighting, you're not distracting from that emotion that you're trying to convey.
Excellent, excellent. So the payoff for the pastor to make the investment is going to be to convey emotion, to intimacy that they're going to be able to create. And really, especially when you're casting vision for an organization, you're trying to connect people's hearts to that. And if somebody just gets up front on a microphone and they just say, this is really cool, you should believe in it, it just doesn't carry the same impact of a well-produced production combined with music, casting the vision. And if that's done well, it can knit people's hearts together with that vision, which ultimately brings acceleration to whatever you're trying to get done. So the payoff is huge. All right, lastly, Tony, just kind of to wrap things up, you have a few new ventures. You have some new ventures and some old ventures. Can you just run down the list of things that people can check out to get connected to you, to get free resources, things that maybe cost, just everything that you have that's going to help them move further, faster in media?
Absolutely. We have our main website, NextWaveDV.com, which basically covers everything related to filmmaking, video production, stuff like that. We try to basically cover lighting, shooting, post-production, gear. We're going to be doing a new series soon for post-production. So we've got a lot of resources now, but we're growing exponentially. We got some sponsors on board, so they're helping us increase our production value, increase our content. So now's a great time to get connected with us because you're going to see a ton of stuff coming out very soon. So that's nextwavedv.com. We also have our YouTube page. As you stated, we have over 4,000 subscribers. That's youtube.com/nextwaveg. You can find plenty of links to that on our website too. And then we have a new website. So if you check it out now, it may look boring, but we're going to work on it in the next couple months. We're calling it ChurchDV, and it's going to be a sister site to nextwavedv.com. This is going to be a site solely about church media, how things apply to doing stuff in a church. Because a video production, if I'm doing a corporate video and I'm doing a shoot, things are very, very different than if I'm doing a church video. And there's really, I mean, what you're doing, Sean, and what a lot of other people are doing, there's a few resources out there, and it's really great. I don't think that there's enough, obviously, and so we want to help people out in that respect. At our church, we do a multicam Sunday morning TV show, so we've got some experience in that. So we're going to cover everything from how to use a pro-end broadcast camera, just the basic stuff like how do you just pick up a camera and shoot something for a testimonial video, and everything in between. So we're going to work on that. Like I said, it's going to be months down the road. And also, we're going to be launching products. We're launching this weekend, assuming, like I said, everything goes well, our NextWaveDV store. You can find links to that off of nextwavedv.com. And that's going to have products like our background tracks, and we're going to have shortly texture packs, which you can use for video production, or graphic design, anything like that. Just high resolution textures, a great variety that you can just find what you're looking for really cheap. We're going to be doing some HD backdrops soon. The HDSLR 101, which will be available for download for a small fee. And then we're going to be doing some church media specific stuff too. I'm working with a guy that's a professional composer out in Hollywood, and he does a lot of church audio, and he's going to do an entire instructional packet, and he's might be doing a podcast kind of audio thing. So I'm not sure exactly what he's going to do in there, but we're going to be doing that. Some other church media stuff. So we're going to be doing stuff geared specifically towards church media, and the goal is keep the price low. We're not trying to make a ton of money off of this. This helps keep our production, pay for the production, for all the free stuff that we put out there. So we always appreciate the people that are willing to buy the stuff. But we want to create great resources that are low cost and allow you to get into it without having to break the bank.
Absolutely. Well, that sounds awesome. And so, yeah, if you're watching right now, I totally fully recommend that. You can't afford not to follow Tony on Twitter and subscribe on YouTube, and put the NextWaveDV and the Church DV in your feed burner and your blog feed, and just really get connected, because the stuff he's putting out it's just awesome. It's already it's helped me out. It's helping people get stuff done and take things to new levels all the time. Well, thanks again, Tony, for taking the time out of your day to be on Think Media TV. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Sean. It's good meeting you.
And look forward to chatting again sometime.
Likewise.